Hello and welcome to the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. I'm your host, Jeff Harvey, registered migration agent with Down Under Visa, the premier Australian migration agent in Manila, Philippines, specialising in visas for Australian Filipina couples. We hope you enjoy this podcast and hope it proves useful to you. Please feel free to share this with your partner and with any of your interested friends. Let's get started. Australian Filipina couples becoming a dad to a Filipino child. Now, I did an article fairly recently on my personal blog page. Now, if you haven't seen that, www.jeffharvey.com.au. Basically my stories about life in the Philippines, not specifically visa oriented, or actually definitely not visa oriented, but things that tend to be of interest to our clients anyway. But this particular article, it seemed to strike a few chords with quite a lot of people. Now the topic was Father's Day, but I expanded it, as I tend to do sometimes when I'm a bit inspired. I expanded it into what it means to be a father and how to be a father. For those who don't realise, I had two biological children, two sons, and then when I remarried, I married a single mum who, buy one take one arrangement. She came with my very own daughter, and family has expanded considerably since, because we sort of taken on quite a lot of children who, their families aren't quite as well off as we are, so we've taken them into our home, and they've become our kids. So that's our situation. So what it means to be a father and how to be a father, and I suppose I've had a fair bit of practice over the years. So, but then I shared that article on the Down Under Visa Facebook page and on the Philippines to Australia Facebook group. Please excuse my budgerigars in the background. They're covered up and they're supposed to be quiet, but they're not being quiet at all, so they might just join in a little bit along the way. So I shared it on those two pages because I felt it could be of value for those new Australian Filipina families where an Australian sponsor marries a Filipina single mum and gets a partner visa from the Philippines to Australia, and they form a new family together with a Filipino child or children. And we get quite a few clients like that. Some won't include kids. Those who I admire and take my hat off, absolutely are quite happy to take on kids that they didn't father themselves, and to love them and treat them as their own children. Well done, fellas. And look, it got me thinking further about what can stand in the way when there is a willing new Australian dad and a new family member arriving in the form of, let's say, a 10-year-old Filipino child. Now, the child arrives, has some English skills, but hasn't managed to form a close relationship with, we'll call him Steve for the purposes of this article, the new Aussie dad. He hasn't formed a close relationship with new Aussie dad Steve, and his Filipina mum has no firm strategy, but wants her child to be happy. Now, what should she do and what should she not do? So we have a new dad and a new relationship with a Filipino child. Now, I made 6 separate points under a heading of how to be a dad. Please read that on the link on the blog article if you can, or please go to jeffharvey.com.au and have a look at the article about Father's Day. One which I think needs some expanding on is the following, and it needs a Filipino mum to understand. So the hint is, if you're the one listening to this, please share this podcast with your lovely wife, so she understands, and hopefully this will help you all. Now, point here: make sure that you and your wife, fiance, partner work as a team. If you undermine each other, the kids will soon work out how to play the two of you off against each other. And that's not going to, they may in the short term think that will help them, but it won't. So support each other and back each other up. If you meet a lady who wants you to not get involved in the upbringing of her kids, I think I would go so far to say that you should move on. It will be a bad relationship. That was one of the things which, back in the days when my first marriage broke up and I was dating Australian women, and I came across a few single mums, and it was pretty obvious right from the start that, this is my children, you back off. So it was very, very obvious that if I had formed a relationship, well then it would have been a case of having to get absolute permission to do anything, and mum would always have the right to veto. It just, as far as families go, it just plain doesn't work. What you've got there is a pretend family with a stepdad who, gets ignored, has no say in anything. Well, you think about it, why on earth would you want to be part of a relationship like that? So here are some guiding points. 1, share parenting responsibility. Now this is one I got right with my wife Mila back when we were still writing letters together, in other words, before we even lodged a partner visa. She was in Hong Kong, I was in Australia. Actually, even before we met, certain things I made clear because, I'd had a particularly notably bad relationship post-marriage where, goodness me, I got involved with a school teacher and she had very firm ideas about children and thought I wasn't qualified, so therefore she just tried to take over, and I wasn't very happy about any of it. But yes, it was very much in my mind. I said to her right from the start that if we were to become a family, we would need to be a 100% family. None of this step-parent nonsense. I would be dad and she would be mum. Our kids. So not my kids, her kids. And we stuck to that right from the beginning, and we never allowed ourselves to get possessive or to forget what that we were now married. Not always incredibly easy. I mean, both Mila and myself had our moments where we have felt overprotective. She would be her biological daughter. She would be more protective of her than she was with others, and sometimes, you could have a few little tense moments there. And I was the same with my son. I mean, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what, even if he was in the wrong. If my wife would criticise him, say anything about him, even if it was thoroughly deserved, I still had this instant cringing feeling of where I just plain didn't like it. However, well, it might not be easy letting go. It doesn't always flow easily, but you have to do it. Now, ladies, you cannot expect a man to love and house and support your child and yet otherwise be a big nobody. And the same applies to a man expecting a woman to love his kids as her own, and then not want her to be in charge of them and to have to run everything by him and get his approval first. It just plain doesn't work. And it also means you need to make sure that the kids know that there are now two bosses. Now, I did that very clear right from the start. I said, well, I'm not really interested, fellas, whether you like it or not. She is here. She ain't going nowhere, and you treat her with respect and you obey her every command exactly the same as you would with me, and realise that if you annoy her, that will doubly annoy me, so watch out. So it was made clear in my usual blunt way right from the start, and it helped. Eldest son particularly, he would have preferred if things stayed as they were, but well, that's life. I was perfectly entitled to get married, and well, whether he liked it or not, well, he was no longer my 2IC, so had to accept it. And the next point is you need to agree on cultural issues, and that means compromise. Now, by this I mean things like food and language. Make sure you are united and you're doing the same things. You can't have separate meals, nor can you have secretive conversations in different languages. And no father-child bond will ever happen if they can't speak to each other. If the child isn't up on English and doesn't want to speak English, you just can't have it. So language. So ladies, if you've married an English-speaking Australian, which in most cases you will have, and you're intending to live in Australia, that's your reality. Now, from a practical point of view, better your child can communicate well with his or her new dad, new school friends, and with everyone else in the new world which he or she will find themselves in right now. Now, languages, oh goodness, they can be annoying things. Now, they can be exclusive or inclusive. If you and your child speak Tagalog or your regional dialect in front of new dad, well, you're telling him he doesn't matter very much. So don't do it. Look, maintain the language, sure, there's not a problem with that. It doesn't mean you have to dispose of the old language, but just main thing is to understand that talking Tagalog in front of an English-only speaker is very, very rude. It's bastos, even more so when it's your husband and now father of your Filipino child. I guess you just have to put yourself in the same situation. If, say, you married a German who spoke English, two of you can speak English together, and he would invite his German mates around, and they would all sit there, going, ja, das ist gut, and you're sitting there. You just imagine how you'd feel. All of them could speak English and they could include you, but they choose not to. They choose a language which says, don't worry about the woman over there, she really doesn't count. And it's exactly the same thing. There you are with your child, chattering away in Tagalog at the dinner table, and there's your husband sitting there having absolutely no idea what's going on. I mean, how could anybody not think that was very, very rude? Okay? So remember that. Food. Apart from the fact that 90% rice diets are horribly unhealthy, try to agree on food that you all like most of the time. Yes, if you wish to occasionally cook stinky dried fish, at least a kilometre downwind from the house, and to brush your teeth and use Listerine afterwards. Sure, but families share meals together. Form a happy compromise. Now, kids also thrive and grow healthy on a good Aussie diet. You will find that, my goodness. I've seen the difference it makes to underweight, emaciated Filipino kids with knobbly knees and legs like sticks on having a decent diet. Lots of protein and vitamins from fruit and vegetables, enough meat. Don't let adherence to Filipino culture drive a wedge between you and your new family. That's what matters. What goes on back in the Philippines, that's a different world. You are there with your husband in Australia. You have to be prepared to compromise. And look, parenting styles, discussion and compromise. That's what is needed. Now, there is no right way to bring up kids. Much of it is fairly instinctive. Some of it is cultural. There'll be things you'll do in a certain culture that are quite normal. What you've grown up with, you've seen how kids are raised. But you grew up in the Philippines. Your husband grew up in Australia, so you are going to have different views about what you're happy with when it comes to raising kids. Now, it should largely come down to what you are both happy with. Now, areas like discipline, TV watching, internet access, friends, time to go to bed, manners, general morality. Talk about it. Speak your mind. Put your thoughts into words. Never expect your spouse to read your mind, and listen to each other. Respect each other's opinions and your rights to have those opinions. Everybody, we have our own feelings. We have our own opinions, and we are absolutely entitled to those, and that's your starting point. So you're entitled to have those. However, what I'm talking about here right now is discussion and compromise. So, you could have a strong opinion about something. I had daughters asking me, hey, Dad, could I get 2 earrings in this ear? Now, to me, I thought, it's okay with me. Mila doesn't like it. I'm not actually quite sure why, but she kept, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, she has a strong opinion about it. I really don't. I suppose our main way of compromising is, if I feel strongly about something and Mila feels less strongly, well, we go with what I say. If she feels strongly about things and I don't, well, we go her way. And I'm not using clever words here to indicate that I rule the roost and everything goes my way, because it most certainly doesn't. Plenty of things which are outside of my area of expertise, or where I really don't have a particularly strong opinion. I'm quite happy to bend, and invariably, a kid comes to me, asks something, I say, it's okay with me, but go and see what Mum says. And they say, Mum said to ask you. So we're bouncing backwards and forwards between each other. We make sure that we're both okay about it. So So again, you respect each other's opinions and rights to have those opinions. And neither of you has veto rights over your child. Veto rights meaning, the power to put their foot down and say, I don't care what you say, I make the decision because this is my child. Now, your new family is now run by 2 parents. Now, if you're reading this on the blog, if you read this on our website, you'll see there's a link to, I've got further articles about effective communication within marriage. If your marriage matters anything to you, which I hope it does, please go and read up on that. Next area, names and titles. Mum, Dad. Now, Mama and Papa, if you like, although most of the kids at school will say Mum and Dad, not Mom either. Mum, M-U-M, and you need to consider that. One of my little, not really a little secret, but my father, when I grew up, for some reason, wanted us to call him Pop. Now, everybody else at school had a dad. I had a Pop, and I would refer to him as my father, because I was embarrassed about the fact that I referred to him as something else. So, yeah, if everyone at school is saying Mum or Mummy, and you make your child call you Mama, it could sound a bit strange, and I've never heard a single kid at an Aussie school ever refer to their father as Papa. So keep that in mind. Make it easier for them. Don't use first names, and don't do the Daddy Steve thing. Now, you know as well as I do from the Philippines that that's just a title you give to somebody. It's like saying Uncle Steve, but it's a lesser title. So you just say, you're saying, well, I'm Mum or I'm Mama or whatever, but that's Steve over there, but you can call him Daddy Steve just to be a bit more respectful. But for goodness sakes, please, do not do that. The parental respect starts with the 2 of you. Now, visibly show each other respect as parents and as absolute life partners, and the child will soon catch on. Now, I wish you and your new family a long and happy life together. Best of luck. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you found this useful. Australian visas from the Philippines are not easy, and the outcome matters, as you well know. Please feel free to contact us anytime if you need some further help. And we look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye-bye.